Jake Morrison sat in the cold metal chair and stared at the message on his screen. He read it 3 times before the words really made sense. The Galactic Council wanted to meet with Earth. They wanted humans to prove they deserved a place among the stars. The message was simple but deadly. One human would fight in the old trials. If that human won, Earth would get a seat at the big table where aliens made decisions about the galaxy. If that human lost, Earth would stay alone in space for another 100 years. Jake rubbed his tired eyes. He had been a soldier for 15 years. He fought on Mars when the colonies rebelled. He kept peace on the mining stations near Jupiter. He was good at his job, but he was not a superhero. He was just a guy from Kansas who knew how to fight. The Ducker opened and General Adams walked in. The old man looked worried. "You read it?" he asked. "Yeah, I read it." Jake stood up and stretched. His back hurt from sitting too long. "They want us to send someone to fight their champions. All of them. The other species have been doing this for thousands of years," Adams said. "They send their best warriors, genetic freaks, robots, things that can crush a tank with their bare hands." Jake nodded. He had seen the videos. The Zephyrians looked like walking diamonds. The Gorvani had 4 arms and skin like stone. The Nexari moved so fast the cameras could barely track them. All of them were built for killing. "Why did you volunteer?" Adams asked. Jake thought about his daughter Katie back home. She was 12 years old and dreamed of being a space pilot. She wanted to see other worlds and meet aliens. She deserved that chance. "Someone has to do it," Jake said. "Might as well be me." Adams shook his head. "You know what happened to the last species that tried this? The Karathi sent their greatest warrior. He lasted 30 seconds against the first opponent." "I'm not planning to die, sir." Neither was he. Jake walked to the window and looked out at the stars. Earth's newest space station hung in orbit like a metal flower. Humans had built that in just 2 years. They were good at building things. They were good at solving problems. Maybe that would be enough. "What do we know about the trials?" Jake asked. Adams pulled up files on his tablet. "They happen on Centris, Prime, big arena, millions of spectators. You fight 5 champions, one after another. Each one represents a different major species. All in one day? No, 1 fight per week. They give you time to heal between matches, if you can heal." Jake studied the information. The arena was huge, made of black glass that could withstand nuclear blasts. The gravity was close to Earth normal. The air was breathable. At least he would not suffocate. "Tell me about the champions," he said. Adams scrolled through the files. "First is Vexthul the Destroyer. Zephyrian, 12 feet tall. His skin is made of living crystal. Nothing can cut through it. He has won 43 fights without taking damage." Jake memorized the alien's picture. Vexthul looked like a statue, made of diamonds, but he moved like a dancer, fast and graceful despite his size. Second is Krath Bloodfist, Gorvani, 4 arms. Each one can punch through steel. He likes to grab opponents and squeeze until they pop. The Gorvani looked like a gray mountain with arms. His face was flat and brutal. His eyes were small and mean. Third is Silthara, Nexari. She moves faster than human eyes can follow. Her claws can cut through spaceship armor. She has never taken longer than 5 minutes to kill an opponent. The Nexari female was beautiful in a deadly way. She had pale blue skin and silver hair, but her fingers ended in claws like knives. Her smile showed too many sharp teeth. Fourth is Mordak, the Eternal. Nobody knows what species he is. He was touched by something in deep space. He can walk through walls. He can make gravity work backwards. Some people think he can read minds. Mordak looked almost human, but wrong somehow. His skin was too pale. His eyes were completely black. He seemed to float instead of walk. "And the last one?" Jake asked. Adams hesitated. "Archon Kel'Thuzad, the first among champions. He has been fighting for 3,000 years. No one has ever heard him. Some species worship him as a god." The picture showed a tall figure wrapped in energy and shadow. Jake could not make out details, but he felt cold just looking at it. Great, Jake said. 5 impossible fights against things that should not exist. You can still change your mind, Adam said. We could send someone else. Jake thought about Katie again. She had asked him why he volunteered for what everyone called a suicide mission. He had told her that sometimes someone had to show the galaxy what humans were made of. No, he said. I'm going. 3 days later, Jake stood on the transport ship that would take him to Centris Prime. His wife Mary had cried when he left. Katie had been brave, but her eyes were red. The whole world was watching. News crews followed him everywhere. Everyone wanted to know if Earth's champion could survive what was coming. Jake did not feel like a champion. He felt like a regular guy who had gotten in way over his head. But he had trained his whole life for impossible situations. Marines were good at doing jobs that could not be done. The transport jumped to hyperspace. Jake looked out at the swirling colors and made himself a promise. He might not win all 5 fights, he might not even survive the first one. But he would show the galaxy that humans did not give up. He would prove that Earth deserved respect. The stars rushed past, carrying him toward the arena where history would be written. The arena on Centris Prime was bigger than anything Jake had ever seen. It stretched for miles in every direction, carved from black volcanic glass that gleamed like a mirror. Viewing platforms rose up in layers, each one packed with aliens from across the galaxy. Jake had never felt so small. His quarters were deep underground, connected to the arena by a long tunnel. The walls were thick metal, designed to keep fighters locked in until their matches. Jake sat on the hard bed and tried not to think about how many champions had died in the rooms around him. Dr. Lisa Chen finished checking his blood pressure. She was his medical officer, a small woman with steady hands and worried eyes. Your heart rate is elevated, she said. I'm about to fight a 12-foot crystal monster, Jake replied. My heart rate should be elevated. Captain Ryan Taylor looked up from his tactical display. He was Jake's strategist, a thin man who saw patterns where others saw chaos. I've been studying the footage of Vexthol's fights. He has some weaknesses, such as he favors his right side. There's an old injury in his left shoulder joint. The crystal plates don't quite meet properly there. Jake nodded. Any weakness was better than none. What else? He's used to opponents who try to match his strength. Bigger aliens who fight head-on. You're different. You're smaller, faster, smarter. Sergeant Amy Brooks was cleaning Jake's combat gear. She was tough as nails and had kept him alive through 3 wars. The armor's as good as we can make it, she said, but don't count on it stopping those crystal fists. The 4 of them had worked together for years. They were not just a team. They were family. Jake trusted them with his life, which was good because that was exactly what he was doing. A buzzer sounded. Fight time. Jake walked through the tunnel toward the arena floor. The walls were lined with symbols from every species in the galaxy. Some looked like writing, others looked like warnings. The tunnel seemed to go on forever, but finally he saw light ahead. The roar hit him like a physical force. Millions of voices, most of them not human, filled the air. Jake stepped onto the black glass floor and looked up. The viewing platform stretched toward the sky, packed with creatures he had only seen in pictures. They were all here to watch him die. On the far side of the arena, a gate opened. Vexthol the Destroyer stepped out, and Jake's heart sank. The sea. Videos had not shown how truly massive the Zephyrian was. 12 feet of living crystal that caught the arena lights and threw them back in rainbow patterns. His footsteps rang like hammer blows on the glass floor. The crowd noise changed. Jake heard cheering from the Zephyrian sections. Other aliens were making sounds he could not identify. Betting was probably heavy against the small human. An announcer's voice boomed across the arena in several languages. Jake heard his name, in the human version, representing the species of Earth champion Jake Morrison. The cheering was thin. A few thousand humans had made the journey to Centris Prime, but they were lost in the sea of alien spectators. Vexthul moved closer, each step deliberate and confident. Up close, Jake could see the details of the crystal armor. It was not just decoration. It was part of the alien's body. Living diamond that had grown over centuries of combat. Human, Vexthul said in accented English. His voice was like breaking glass. You are brave to face me. I will make your death quick. Thanks, Jake said. That's real considerate of you. The Zephyrian seemed puzzled by the response. Most opponents probably begged or screamed at this point. A horn sounded. The fight began. Vexthul charged immediately, moving faster than something his size should be able to move. His crystal fist came down like a falling meteor. Jake rolled to the side, feeling the wind from the punch. The fist hit the arena floor and cracked the volcanic glass. The crowd gasped. That punch would have turned Jake into paste. Jake came up, running, circling around the giant alien. Vexthul turned to follow, but Jake was already moving again. He had learned long ago that the first rule of fighting bigger opponents was never to be where they expected you to be. Vexthul swung again, a horizontal blow that would have cut Jake in half. Jake dropped flat and slid under the punch, popping, up behind the Zephyrian. He struck at the back of the crystal knee, his combat knife sparking off the diamond-hard surface. The alien spun around with surprising speed. Jake barely avoided a backhand that would have launched him into the arena. Wall. The crowd was on its feet now, alien voices rising in excitement. For 10 minutes, Jake ran and dodged while Vexthul pursued him. The Zephyrian's attacks grew wilder, more frustrated. He was used to ending fights quickly. Jake was making him work for it. That was when Jake noticed it. The left shoulder joint that Ryan had mentioned. When Vexthul raised his left arm, there was a tiny gap where the crystal plates separated. A space no bigger than Jake's thumb, but it was there. Jake changed tactics. Instead of running away, he began to attack. Quick strikes at the alien's legs, forcing Vexthul to defend with his left arm. Each time the arm came up, Jake got a better look at the gap. The alien grew angrier. His movements became less controlled. Jake could see fury in the crystal features. Vexthul was not used to opponents who made him look foolish. That anger was exactly what Jake needed. Vexthul raised both arms for a massive overhead strike. Jake feinted left, then dove right, rolling between the alien's legs. As he came up behind Vexthul, the Zephyrian was already turning, his left arm raised to block. Jake saw his chance. He lunged forward, driving his combat knife up into the tiny gap in the crystal armor. The blade slid between the plates and found something soft underneath. Vexthul screamed, a sound like shattering glass that made the entire arena ring. He staggered backward, crystal blood flowing from the wound. Jake's knife had found a nerve cluster paralyzing the giant's left side. The mighty destroyer fell to one knee, then toppled sideways. The arena floor shook with the impact. Silence fell over the millions of spectators. Then, slowly, sound returned. Human voices cheering, alien voices expressing disbelief. The impossible had happened. Jake Morrison, ordinary human from Earth, had defeated a champion who had never been hurt before. He looked up at the alien crowds and saw something he had not expected. Along with the shock and anger, he saw something else. Respect. The first battle was won, but 4 more champions waited. Jake walked back toward the tunnel, already thinking about his next opponent. Behind him, medical teams rushed to help the fallen Zephyrian. History had begun to change. Jake's victory over Vexthul had changed everything. News of the humans' win spread across the galaxy faster than light travel. On Earth, crowds gathered in every city to watch the recordings. Children wore Jake Morrison t-shirts to school. Adults, who had never cared about space politics, suddenly knew the names of alien species. In his underground quarters, Jake tried to ignore the noise. His ribs ached from dodging Vexthul's attacks. His knife hand was swollen from the impact against crystal armor. Dr. Chen had given him painkillers, but they only helped so much. The betting odds have changed, Captain Taylor said, looking at his tablet. You're still the underdog, but not by as much. Great, Jake muttered. Maybe I'll live long enough to lose my 3rd fight instead of my 2nd. Amy Brooks was sharpening his combat knife. The blade had chips in it from striking crystal armor. Krath Bloodfist fights different than the Crystal Boy, she said. He's a brawler. Likes to grab and crush. Jake nodded. He had watched every video of the Gorvani champion they could find. Krath was a mountain of gray flesh with 4 arms, each one strong enough to bend steel. He did not fight with skill or strategy. He just overpowered his opponents through pure strength. His weakness is his temper, Taylor said. He gets angry when fights last too long, makes mistakes. How long is too long? Jake asked. Most of his fights end in under a minute. Jake laughed bitterly. So I just have to survive longer than 60 seconds against something that could crush a tank. Dr. Chen finished bandaging his ribs. Your body is holding up better than expected, but you can't keep taking this kind of punishment. I don't plan to take any punishment from Krath. I plan to make him chase me around the arena until he gets tired. And if he catches you? Jake did not answer. They all knew what would happen if Krath caught him. The week between fights passed slowly. Jake spent his time studying videos and training in the small exercise room they had given him. The arena management wanted to keep him healthy enough to put on a good show. Dead champions were bad for ticket sales. On the morning of his second fight, Jake felt different. The fear was still there, but it was mixed with something else. Confidence, maybe. He had beaten one impossible opponent. Maybe he could beat another. The tunnel to the arena seemed shorter this time. The crowd noise was different too. Instead of expecting to watch a human die quickly, they were curious to see what the strange little fighter would do next. Jake stepped onto the black glass floor and looked up at the millions of spectators. He spotted the human section, bigger now than it had been a week ago. More people had made the journey to watch their champion fight. Signs and banners with his name filled an entire viewing platform. The gate on the far side opened. Krath Bloodfist stomped out, and Jake felt his confidence waver. The Gorvani was even bigger than Vexthal, but where the crystal alien had been graceful, Krath was pure brutality. His forearms swung like wrecking balls as he walked, his small eyes fixed on Jake with obvious hunger. Human meat, Krath said in a voice like grinding stone. Been long time since I taste human meat. You might want to try a salad instead, Jake replied. You look like you could use the vitamins. Several aliens in the crowd made sounds that might have been laughter. Krath's face darkened with anger. The horn sounded. Krath charged like a freight train. Jake ran to the side, but one of the forearms caught him a glancing blow that sent him tumbling across the arena floor. Pain shot through his shoulder. The alien was faster than he looked. Jake rolled to his feet and kept moving. Krath turned to follow, all 4 arms reaching for him. Jake dodged between them, staying just out of reach. The crowd noise rose as the chase began. For 5 minutes, Jake ran while Krath pursued him. The Gorvani's breathing grew heavier. Sweat appeared on his gray skin. His movements became less coordinated as he grew tired and frustrated. That was when Jake noticed something interesting. The arena floor was not completely smooth. There were patterns in the black glass, decorative swirls that created shallow channels. Most fighters ignored them, but Jake saw an opportunity. He began leading Krath toward a section where the channels were deeper. The alien followed, focused only on catching the annoying human who kept slipping away. Krath's small brain could only think about one thing at a time. Jake reached the area he wanted and stopped running. He turned to face the charging Gorvani, with his feet planted carefully on solid ground. Krath's eyes lit up with savage joy. Finally, the human had made a mistake. The alien leaped forward with all 4 arms spread wide. Jake waited until the last second, then dropped flat. Krath sailed over him and landed hard in one of the deeper channels. His right foot caught in the groove and his massive body twisted as he fell. The sound of breaking bone echoed across the arena. Krath screamed in pain and rage, his ankle bent at an impossible angle. 3 of his arms still worked, but he could no longer stand. Jake circled the fallen giant carefully. A wounded animal was often more dangerous than a healthy one. Krath tried to grab him with his good arms, but his reach was limited now. Jake stayed just out of range, waiting for the right moment. The Gorvani's strength was fading as pain and exhaustion took hold. Finally, Jake saw his chance. He darted in between 2 grasping arms and struck at the nerve cluster at the base of Krath's neck. The combat knife found its mark, and the Gorvani went limp. The arena fell silent again. 2 fights, 2 victories. The impossible was becoming routine. Jake looked up at the alien spectators and saw more than respect this time. He saw fear. The small human was not just lucky, he was dangerous. In the human section, the crowd was going wild. Signs and banners waved frantically. Jake could hear them chanting his name even over the confused murmur of alien voices. But Jake was already thinking about his next opponent. Silthera the Nexari assassin was faster than human eyes could follow. She had never taken longer than 5 minutes to kill an opponent. Speed was different from strength. Jake could outthink a strong opponent, but how do you fight something you cannot see coming? He walked back toward the tunnel, his mind already working on the problem. 3 more champions waited, each one more deadly than the last. The galaxy was watching now. Everyone wanted to see if the humans' luck would hold. Jake. Morrison had a feeling that luck was about to run out. Jake had 2 weeks to prepare for Silthera. 2 weeks to figure out how to fight something he could not see. His team worked around the clock, studying every piece of footage they could find of the Nexari assassin. She's fast, but she's not magic, Captain Taylor said, pointing at freeze-frame images on his screen. Look here. You can see the pattern. She attacks from the left 60% of the time. Jake squinted at the blurry pictures. Silthara moved so quickly that most cameras could only capture ghost images of her silver hair and pale blue skin. What about the other 40%? Right side attacks, but only when her opponent is already wounded. She likes to finish fights from the right. Dr. Chen was worried about Jake's condition. His shoulder was healing slowly from Krath's glancing blow. Bruises covered his ribs and back. You need more time to recover, she said. I don't get more time. The schedule is set. Amy Brooks had been working on new equipment. She held up a pair of modified goggles. These might help. They're designed to track fast movement. Fighter pilots use them. Jake tried on the goggles. The world looked different through the special lenses. Movement seemed to leave trails in the air. It was not perfect, but it might give him a fraction of a second more reaction time. The days passed too quickly. Jake's shoulder improved, but not enough. His reflexes were sharp, but were they sharp enough? He would find out soon. On the morning of the 3rd fight, news came from Earth that changed everything. The president had declared Jake Morrison a national hero. Schools were closed so children could watch the fight. The entire planet was holding its breath. No pressure, Jake muttered as he walked through the tunnel to the arena. The crowd noise was different again. Louder, more excited. Jake's first 2 victories had turned the trials from a routine execution into the greatest show in galactic history. Aliens who had never cared about combat sports were buying tickets. Some species were sending diplomatic missions just to witness the fights. Jake stepped onto the arena floor and immediately felt the difference. The air seemed to hum with energy. Millions of eyes watched his every move. In the human section, the crowd was 3 times bigger than before. Earth flags waved. Alongside signs with his name, the far gate opened. Silthera stepped out, and Jake's breath caught in his throat. She was beautiful in the way that deadly things often are. Pale blue skin that seemed to glow in the arena lights, silver hair that moved like liquid metal. But her eyes were the eyes of a killer, cold and empty of mercy. She moved toward the center of the arena, each step flowing like water. Even walking normally, she seemed faster than anything Jake had ever seen. Human warrior, she said in a voice like wind chimes. You have impressed many with your victories. But speed kills strength, speed kills cunning. You cannot defeat what you cannot touch. Maybe not, Jake said. But I can try. Silthara smiled, showing those sharp teeth. Yes, you can try. The horn sounded. Silthara vanished. Jake felt the wind of her passage as something struck at his head. He threw himself sideways, the goggles showing him a blur of silver that might have been her hair. Claws scraped across his chest armor, leaving deep scratches in the metal. She was gone again before he could react. The crowd gasped as blood appeared on Jake's chest. First blood to the Nexari. Jake activated his goggles tracking mode. The world became a maze of movement trails. He could see faint lines in the air where Silthara had passed. It was like trying to follow a ghost, but it was something. Another attack came from his right side. Jake rolled forward, feeling claws slice through the air where his back had been. He came up swinging but struck only empty air. Silthara was already moving, already preparing her next strike. For 10 minutes, the deadly dance continued. Silthara struck from every angle, her claws finding gaps in Jake's armor. Blood flowed from a dozen shallow cuts. Jake could not land. A single blow in return. The crowd was on its feet, alien voices rising in excitement. They were watching a master at work. Silthara was playing with her prey, making the kill last longer for the entertainment value. But Jake was learning. Each attack taught him something about how she moved. She was fast, but she had patterns. She preferred certain angles. She always paused for a split second before striking, like a cat preparing to pounce. Most importantly, he realized she was getting tired. The incredible speed came at a cost. Her breathing was harder now. Her movements were slightly less precise. Jake changed his strategy. Instead of trying to avoid her attacks, he began to predict where she would be. When she came from the left, he was already moving right. When she struck high, he was already ducking low. Silthara noticed the change. Her attacks became more aggressive, less controlled. She was used to opponents who panicked under her speed. Jake was adapting instead of breaking. That adaptation saved his life when she made her first real mistake. She came in for a killing blow to his throat, but Jake had seen the pattern. He dropped to one knee and struck upward with his combat knife. The rear blade caught her across the ribs as she passed overhead. Not a deep cut, but enough to draw first blood from the assassin who had never been touched before. Silthara landed badly, surprised by the sudden pain. For just a moment, she stopped moving. Jake could see shock in those cold eyes. "Impossible," she whispered. "I'm full of surprises," Jake said. The fight changed after that. Silthara was no longer playing. She attacked with killing intent, her claws seeking vital spots. But she was also making more mistakes. Pain and fatigue were affecting her judgment. Jake pressed his advantage. He began to attack as well as defend, forcing her to react to his movements instead of just making her own. The roles slowly reversed. The hunter became the hunted. The end came suddenly. Silthara overextended on a strike to his heart. Jake sidestepped and grabbed her wrist as she passed. Using her own momentum, he threw her hard into the arena wall. The impact stunned her. Jake was on her before she could recover, his knife at her throat. "Yield," he said. Silthara looked up at him with something that might have been respect. "I yield, human warrior. You have earned this victory." The arena erupted. 3 victories. 3 impossible opponents defeated by the human who would not give up. But Jake barely heard the crowd. His body was screaming with pain from a dozen cuts. Blood loss was making him dizzy. Dr. Chen would have her work cut out for her. 2 more champions waited. Mordak the Eternal, who could walk through walls and bend reality. And after him, Archon Kel'Thuzad, the first among champions, who had never lost a fight in 3,000 years. Jake looked up at the cheering crowd and wondered if his luck could possibly hold for 2 more battles. Deep down, he suspected it could not. Jake lay in the medical bay for 3 days after fighting Silthara. Dr. Chen had worked around the clock to patch up his wounds. 12 deep cuts from razor-sharp claws, blood loss and exhaustion that went down to his bones. His body was breaking, down from the punishment. "You can't fight Mordak like this," Chen said, checking his bandages. "Your reflexes are slower. Your strength is maybe 60% of normal." "I don't have a choice," Jake replied. His voice was hoarse from pain medication. "The schedule is set. 3 days between fights. That's the rule." Captain Taylor looked grim as he studied footage of Mordak the Eternal. "This one is different from the others. He doesn't follow normal physics. Look at this." The video showed Mordak fighting a champion from the Karathi Empire. The alien warrior struck with a plasma sword that should have cut Mordak in half. Instead, the blade passed right through him like he was made of air. Then Mordak became solid again and killed his opponent with a touch that stopped the aliens. Hart, he can become a ghost, Amy Brooks said. How do you fight a ghost? Jake forced himself to sit up, ignoring the pain in his ribs. Everything has rules. Even weird space magic has rules. We just need to figure out what they are. They watched the footage over and over. Mordak could walk through walls, yes. He could make gravity work backwards, lifting opponents into the air. He could become solid or not solid at will. But there were patterns. He has to concentrate, Taylor said finally. Look here. When he goes ghostly, his eyes close for just a second, and when he uses the gravity power, he has to point at his target. What about the death touch? Jake asked. I think that one is real. Don't let him touch you when his hands are glowing. Jake laughed bitterly. Don't let the reality-bending monster touch me. Got it. On the morning of the fourth fight, Jake could barely stand. His team had given him every stimulant and painkiller they could safely use, but his body was running on willpower alone. Earth was watching. The galaxy was watching. He could not quit now. The walk to the arena felt like climbing a mountain. Each step sent pain through his wounded body. But when he emerged onto the black glass floor, the roar of the crowd gave him strength he did not know he had. The human section now filled an entire side of the arena. Flags from every nation on Earth waved in the artificial wind. Signs in dozens of languages all said the same thing. Go Jake! But it was not just humans cheering now. Some of the alien spectators were also supporting him. The Zephyrians respected his victory over Vex Thule. Young Gorvani admired how he had outsmarted Krath. Even some Nixari were impressed by his speed against Silthera. The gate opened. Mordak the Eternal stepped out, and the temperature in the arena seemed to drop 10 degrees. He looked almost human but wrong in ways that hurt to think about. His skin was too pale, like he had never seen sunlight. His eyes were completely black, with no whites at all. He moved without making any sound, his feet barely touching the ground. Human, Mordak said in a voice like wind through a graveyard. You have come far, but you cannot defeat the void. You cannot fight what is beyond death. Jake drew his combat knife, though he doubted it would help. Maybe not, but I'm going to try anyway. The horn sounded. Mordak raised his hand, and Jake felt his feet leave the ground. Gravity reversed, pulling him toward the arena ceiling. He spun helplessly in the air, completely at the alien's mercy. But Jake had expected this. As he spun, he pulled a flashbang grenade from his belt and activated it. The explosion of light and sound filled the arena. Mordak's concentration broke, and Jake crashed back to the floor. He rolled to absorb the impact and came up running. Mordak was shaking his head, stunned by the flashbang. Jake had maybe 5 seconds before the alien recovered. He used them well. Instead of attacking Mordak directly, he ran to where the alien was standing and scattered a handful of metal ball bearings on the ground. Then he moved away and waited. Mordak recovered and turned to face him. The alien's black eyes burned with anger. Clever, human, but tricks will not save you. Mordak became ghostly and walked forward, passing through the arena floor like it was not there. But when he reached the spot where Jake had scattered the ball bearings, he stumbled. Even as a ghost, he could not walk through the small metal spheres. Jake smiled grimly. Guess your ghost power doesn't work on everything. The alien's face showed confusion for the first time. His abilities had rules just like everything else, and Jake was learning them. For the next hour, the strangest fight in galactic history continued. Mordak would use his powers, and Jake would find ways around them. When the alien tried to lift him again, Jake grabbed onto one of the arena's support columns. When Mordak became ghostly, Jake threw more ball bearings to trip him up. Slowly, Mordak grew frustrated. His powers required focus and energy. Jake was forcing him to use both without being able to land a killing blow. The turning point came when Mordak tried to end the fight with his death touch. His hands began to glow with dark energy as he reached for Jake. But Jake was ready. He activated a second flashbang at point-blank range. The explosion caught both of them. Jake was thrown backward, his ears ringing and his vision blurred. But Mordak screamed in pain. The death energy in his hands backfired, burning his own flesh. Jake struggled to his feet. Mordak was on his knees, his hands blackened and useless. The alien who had seemed invincible was just another opponent with weaknesses. Impossible, Mordak whispered. No one has ever hurt me. First time for everything, Jake said. He raised his knife, but Mordak held up his burned hands in surrender. I yield, human. You have defeated the void itself. The arena exploded in noise. 4 victories. 4 impossible opponents defeated. Jake Morrison had done what no one in galactic history had ever done. But there was one more fight. Archon Kel'Thuzad, the first among champions. The being who had never lost in 3,000 years. Jake looked up at the cheering crowd and felt something he had not expected. Hope. If he could beat a reality-bending ghost, maybe he could beat anything. The final battle would determine not just Earth's place in the galaxy, but the future of how conflicts were resolved. Jake Morrison, ordinary, human from Kansas, was about to face a god, and he was not afraid anymore.